חתימה טובה. So one of the most important things that happened to me in the last few months was that, as some of you know, I became an American citizen. So after 8 years of embracing Nashville as our home, I was interviewed by an officer early in July, and once I managed to answer a couple of questions and showed her that I can speak English with a thick Southern accent, she guided me in taking the oath, and I was given a certificate that confirms that I am a citizen of this country. It's good. It feels good. Paradoxically enough, I became an American citizen on July 9th, which happens to be Argentina's Independence Day. Not only that, but the day after, on July 10th, Argentina won the most important South American soccer cup, something that hadn't happened since the year in which I became a bar mitzvah, which is 1993, for those of you who are trying to work some numbers on the spot. What can I say? God works in very mysterious ways. Now, the truth is that being an American has lots of benefits. Now I can say that I'm part of the country that won the most medals during the Olympic Games in Tokyo. How cool is that? Now, as a reference, because you may not know this, against the 113 medals that the US won, 39 of them gold, Argentina only got 3. None of them gold. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still a proud dual citizen who gets to enjoy both the Latin American Soccer Cups and the Olympic wins. Good for me. Okay? Now, I don't know if it happens to you. It certainly happens to me. I believe that the Olympics are great. Every 4 years, this case was 5, we get to spend hours watching all those sports that we don't really have a clue about, like water polo or javelin throwing, to name a few. But then, yet, I guess that the most important story of these games was that Simone Biles decided to pull herself out of some of her competitions, as you probably know. So one of the best American gymnasts of all times, somebody who has a couple of moves named after her, made a conscious decision to step back. Now, why did she do that? Because she wanted to preserve her mental and physical health. In one of her Instagram posts from those days, Biles wrote the following: "It wasn't an easy day. I truly do feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders at times. I know I brush it off and make it seem like pressure doesn't affect me, but sometimes it's hard." Commenting on those words, Michael Phelps, who, by the way, happens to be the most decorated athlete in Olympic history, said the following: "I hope this is an opportunity for us to jump on board and to even blow this mental health thing even more wide open. We carry a lot of weight on our shoulders, and it is challenging when we have the lights on us and all those expectations being thrown on top of us." Now, as you may imagine, there are a couple of reasons behind the struggle of these athletes. Many of them have to deal with high degrees of pressure and exposure from a very early age. They train for hours on end, And then they are expected to win races that could be defined by a split second. And in a society like ours, that only remembers the winners, nobody really cares if your personal record came just 0.01 seconds too short. Nobody cares, and nobody will remember you. But there is more, because once the Olympics are over, there is the shock that comes when the games are done. Even the biggest champions like Phelps or his fellow swimmer Alison Schmidt have recognized that they have struggled with depression after the Olympics were done. What these athletes are telling us is that you can have the worst time of your life and get depressed, and you can have the best time of your life and still get depressed. And when the depression comes right after such a high moment in your life, the guilt that you may experience for feeling so badly could be excruciating. Not by chance, many of these remarkable competitors find it very, very, very hard to ask for help. And you know why. You know that talking about mental health is never easy. You know that there are a lot of stigmas associated with it, and also a lot of misunderstanding. If you have never had to deal with anxiety yourself, for example, you don't really know what it means for somebody who battles with anxiety on a daily basis. You just don't know. And the same applies to depression and to all sorts of mental disorders out there. As I read in one text while preparing these remarks, not understanding how someone can be depressed when there is so much to be happy about is like not understanding how someone can have asthma when there is so much good air to breathe. Now, we don't have to be professional athletes to feel similar burdens. We don't have to compete in the Olympics to realize that at times we feel like great pretenders, having to conceal what we are going through as we try to disguise our trials and tribulations because we are not so sure how those around us would react if they knew. That is why it is so common to see people struggling with eating disorders or with substance abuse without their families or closest friends noticing it at all. That happens because we have been trained to hide our shortfalls and to publicly deny our rough edges. We may not have to win gold medals or to obsessively train to achieve our goals, but our society has been expecting us to always show our happy faces while playing the part. We were told once and again that we have to meet our challenges with grace and to embrace our disappointments with fortitude. But you know what? The truth is that whether we like it or not, we are all breaking. Under so much pressure, especially during the last year and a half, it doesn't seem necessary or even possible to pretend anymore. We are all broken one way or another. As parents, as children, as spouses, as friends, we are all broken. And even if we may have been fairly successful at concealing that fact from others, deep down, when nobody is looking, we all know our own cracks. We have seen them. We have felt them. We are all well acquainted with our own personal struggles, and every now and then, we can even feel how thin the ice in which we actually walk is. We know it. And yet, it might well be that the problem was never related to our faults or to the fact that we are broken one way or another. On the contrary, if you pay close attention, Jewish sources relentlessly teach us that we are imperfect creatures and that nobody expects us to be any different. The whole idea of teshuvah, of repentance, so central to these days, wouldn't make any sense if we were flawless. Judaism is not asking us to be perfect winners, and there are a gazillion stories within our tradition making that exact point. So today, on this evening of Kol Nidrei, let me share with you one of those stories. According to an old Hasidic tale, every year before the high holidays, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, used to hold a competition to see who would blow the shofar for him. As you may imagine, if you really wanted to blow the shofar on the high holidays for the Baal Shem Tov, you had to be more than just a virtuoso. You had to know all the esoteric prayers that had to be said before you blew the shofar. You had to do your homework. So all the prospective candidates practiced for months. As you may imagine, learning all these prayers was not an easy task. So among the group of candidates, there was a particular fellow who wanted to blow the shofar for the Baal Shem Tov so badly that he had been practicing for years. And yet, when his time came for auditioning before the Hasidic master, he realized that nothing he had done had actually prepared him for the experience of standing before this great and holy man. So you know what he did? He choked. His mind froze, and he couldn't remember a single word from the mystic prayers that he was supposed to say. He even forgot all of what he was supposed to do at that moment. So he just stood there in silence. And then when he realized his failure with this great test, his heart broke and he began to cry. All right, the Baal Shem Tov said, you are hired. But I don't understand, the man replied. I failed the test completely. I couldn't even remember the simplest of the prayers before blowing the shofar. Listening to the words of this man, the Baal Shem Tov shared the following parable. In the palace of the king, there are many secret chambers, and there are secret keys for each chamber. But one key unlocks them all. And that key is like an axe. The king in the parable is the Lord of the universe, is God, the Baal Shem Tov explained. The palace is the house of God. The secret chambers are the spiritual realms that bring us closer and closer to God when we perform the mitzvot with proper intention. And the secret keys are the prayers that you couldn't remember. But the axe, the key that opens every chamber, and brings us directly into the presence of God, that act is a broken heart. So if that is true, and once again, we have a gazillion of stories making that exact point once and again, Judaism is not asking us to be perfect winners. Instead, Judaism wants us to accept our brokenness, to deal with our shortcomings, and to create a safe environment that will allow people to heal, surrounded by understanding, compassion, and love. That is what the high holidays in general and Yom Kippur in particular are all about. And if you don't believe me, think for a minute about some of the central prayers for these days. We just read responsively the Avinu Malkeinu, where we said, please God, be kind to us, ki ein banu ma'asim. Please God, be kind with us because we are very well aware of the fact that we don't have any good deeds to rely upon. We don't have anything. We are empty-handed. And then, if that is not enough, just before the Avinu Malkeinu, we read the confessional prayers and we said out loud once and again, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu. We publicly declare that we did a whole lot of things that we shouldn't have done. We recognize our faults and we admit them together. The whole prayer book for the high holidays, the whole Mahzor, is a testament to our imperfection as human beings. And that's okay, because only in the realization of our inner brokenness can we find some room to heal and, when needed, to make amends. What we are doing today on Yom Kippur is probably among the most important things that Judaism can provide to its members. As the British philosopher Alain de Botton writes, religions are wise in not expecting us to deal with all our emotions on our own. They know how confusing and humiliating it can be to admit to despair, lust, envy, or egomania. They hence give us special days under the cover of which our pestiferous feelings can be processed. They give us lines to recite and songs to sing while they carry us across the treacherous regions of our psyches. It is in that spirit that as we gather here today on Yom Kippur, we finally allow ourselves the chance to stop pretending. Today, as a holy congregation, we have the opportunity to recognize that it is okay not to be okay, that there is nothing wrong with being in pain, and that the only way of healing, the only way to begin the process of healing, is by accepting that we may be hurting deep down inside. In one of his most remarkable teachings, Rabbi Nachman, who, by the way, had to deal with bipolar disorder for most of his adult life, Rabbi Nachman says that depression is like a grumpy friend that is sitting at a party looking at how everybody else is having fun. But when that happens, the rabbi teaches, those who are dancing in the circle have to reach out and include this gloomy friend in the hope that by dancing with them, he will be able to connect with his inner joy and overcome his personal struggles. What I like about this teaching is that Rabbi Nachman doesn't deny the depression and doesn't pretend that it's not there. On the contrary, Rabbi Nachman reminds us that we all have within our own selves moments in which we feel like that gloomy friend himself, or herself, who is hoping for others to come and help him or her. What is so beautiful about this idea is that it helps us to realize that part of our responsibility as a holy congregation is to open the circle of dancers and to welcome everybody into the dance. The dancing per se may not change how people feel, but by including them and making them feel heard and seen, we will be taking a huge step into breaking the cycle of isolation that many times burdens those who are suffering and in pain. Talking about mental health is not easy. And treating mental health disorders won't be a matter of just coming together and praying or dancing next to each other. Chemical imbalances cannot be fixed by wishful thinking, and we would do a disservice to those who are struggling with all kinds of situations by claiming that. However, by talking about mental health issues, we may be able to begin taking some of the stigma out of them. At the same time, we could take important steps as we move away from our society's fixation with perfection, with success, with fame, with flawlessness. Maybe if we become less afraid of our own faults, if we become more open about our own personal struggles, others will follow, and those who need professional assistance will look for it sooner rather than later without feeling any guilt. As you know, these past few years have been ruthless. We have seen worrying trends with parents feeling overwhelmingly anxious, in the number of people overdosing with opioids, with teenagers feeling that nobody sees them and that they are completely invisible. And with the pain of so many who had to and continue to struggle with loneliness. So much harm has been done by the extenuating circumstances that we are all facing, that it is almost our moral obligation to try to take some of the load from the shoulders of those who are suffering the most. And you know what? I believe that we can do that. And I believe that we can heal together. Today on Yom Kippur, as this day begins to unfold, we are called to open our hearts as we try to connect with the pain felt by those around us. Today is also the day in which we can resolve to stop hiding our own pain and to ask for help when help is needed. We are here to heal together, to remind ourselves that we are not alone, and to renew our commitment so that we can make the amends that will allow us to keep on going with a sense of meaning and purpose in our own lives. Today we recognize that the world might be broken and that will continue to be broken, and that we might be broken as well. And yet we also remember, today we remember that, as the Hasidic master used to teach, if we believe that we can break, we have to believe that we can fix whatever has been broken as well. And one last thing. As you may remember, today I began my remarks talking about how happy I was to celebrate the Latin American Soccer Cup that Argentina won and the big number of gold medals that the US amassed during the last Olympic Games. Those were very nice moments, no doubt about it. But you know what? they were fleeting and short-lived as well. And that happens because that type of success is not meant to last for too long. Real success, on the contrary, is not about competition, but about cooperation. Real success is about what we can create together when we come together. Real success is about lending a hand to those in need, accepting a hug when we are hurting, and about coming to terms with our own limitations. There are many. Instead of training non-stop to become winners, we come to shul to become whole, with that type of wholeness that can only be achieved by embracing our own fragility and by being mindful of the fragility of those around us. So in that spirit, may God inspire us to succeed exactly at that. May God bless us with understanding and with compassion. And may we, each and every one of us, make a conscious effort to dedicate this year to live life of meaning, of healing, and of love. Gmar Chatima Tova and Tzom Kal. May this be an easy and meaningful fast, and may we all be sealed in the book of life. Amen.